الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن سار على سبيله إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So today inshallah ta'ala we'll continue our series in discussing the book At-Tazkira fi Ulum al-Hadith. So this is concerning matters that relates to Ilm al-Hadith, and we're discussing this particular book of Ibn Malaki rahimahullah, that the author rahimahullah, he mentioned different types of hadith and also give a definition of what is meant or intended by this terminology according to the ulama of hadith. And in the last lesson that we had covered and ended concerning hadith al-munqata'. So the author rahimahullah, he mentioned of those nu'a, or as he mentioned anwa hadith, these different types of hadith is one that we refer to as al-munqata'. So this hadith of munqata', as he mentioned, huwa ma lam yatasil isnaduhu ala ayyi wajh kan. So munqata' is those hadith that there's a breakage that occur somewhere within the isnad. So there's a breakage that occurs inside the isnad, and that's referred to as munqata'. And as we mentioned, that some of the ulama of hadith, that they are more specified concerning that munqata' is when the breakage occur within the center of the hadith, or in the center of the hadith. So we'll find the isnad, that either the isnad that we have, we say mubtadi', or the starting point of the isnad, and that's by way of the author. So example, al-Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawood. So that's said to be of where the hadith starts. So the beginning of the hadith. Then we have the center of the hadith, and then we have the end of the hadith. So we have three parts, or three areas of the hadith: the beginning, starting, the center, and also the end, which is concerning from the point of the Sahaba. So the ulama rahimahullah regarding munqata', that those who mentioned that in a general meaning, that any breakage that occur is said to be munqata'. And we discussed that matter in the lessons last week. So today inshallah ta'ala we'll discuss the next note, as the author rahimahullah mentioned, Mursal. The next نوع الحديث is hadith al-mursal, and he defined this as هو قول الصحابي وإن لم يكن كبيرا قال رسول الله عليه الصلاة والسلام ومنه ما خفي إرساله. So he mentioned, as what is stated here, هو al-mursal, he defines as هو قول التابعي, that is the statement of a tabi'i, إن لم يكن كبيرا, even if he is not one who is said to be older, one of the older, more senior tabi'in, one of the senior tabi'in, that he says that the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have stated. وَمِنْهُ مَا خَفِيَ إِرْسَالُهُ. And also amongst irsal is those type that it is somewhat which is khafi, it is something which is hidden, it is hidden and not so one which is hidden and not apparent. So regarding concerning this matter, we'll discuss these two types that he mentioned here, mursal, which the first of that discussion is concerning the definition of mursal. Then we'll discuss concerning matters that relate concerning that of those of the tabi'in who were involved in this type of narration, and also the hukum on hadith like this. We'll also discuss some examples, and also we'll discuss some of the books that discuss this particular topic specifically. So starting regarding concerning al-mursal, as by way of definition. So the author rahimahullah mentioned concerning huwa qawlu tabi'i qala Rasul alayhi salam. So the author rahimahullah, he mentioned that by way of definition, that al-mursal he defined as is a statement of a tabi'in, that the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said such and such. So regarding concerning mursal and its definition, as the author mentioned, it is one of the definition given by hadith al-mursal. So mursal, linguistically, it means concerning itlaq. It means something is sent, or something is let loose. So concerning the person I've let loose, or a matter, this is said to be mursal. So to let go of something is said to be mursal. So as for what is meant by mursal in the ulama of hadith, then we'll discuss that there's a khilaf between them as to how they defined hadith and mursal. And we give concerning the more renown of the definition of hadith al-mursal, we give the more accepted or known definition of hadith al-mursal. So you have different definitions that are given. Of those definitions, that are mentioned regarding Hadith al-Mursal of the ulama, that some of the ulama mentioned concerning that Mursal هو قول التابعي الكبير قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. So of the ulama, that they have defined Hadith al-Mursal as hadith where it is the statement of a tabi'i kabir, of a senior tabi'i, that the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have said such and such. So that's one of the definition given for Mursal, the statement of a senior tabi'i upon that the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have said such and such. And that is mentioned by Ibn Abdul Barr, that mentioned is the qawl of some of the ulama who have taken that view. Of the ulama have mentioned that they haven't found anyone specific who have mentioned that definition. So even though it is mentioned that this is one of the definition of Hadith al-Mursal, as stated by Ibn Abdul Barr, by some of the ulama, but to specify particular individual of the ulama have said this, then not mentioned. And with this qawl that they cannot mention with this, so that's concerning that view where they're all concerning Mursal, it is centers around a senior tabi'in. That's one of the definition that is given of Mursal. A second definition that is given concerning Hadith al-Mursal, أن المرسل هو قول التابعي سواء كبيرا أو صغيرا. So they mentioned that the second definition of Mursal, Hadith al-Mursal, is the hadith that have been narrated by a tabi'i upon the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether he is a senior or a younger tabi'i. So for them, they don't per se make a distinction between whether he is a senior or a junior or a younger tabi'in. For them, any tabi'i who narrates upon the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is said to be Hadith al-Mursal. So that's concerning the second definition. And this definition, and they may use other terms that where some might mention that ما أضافه التابعي أن نبي الإسلام, what have been narrated upon the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by a tabi'i. That is also another way that they define this, and also another way that they can, another definition they mean, another way of saying this, they mention that ما رفعه التابعي أن رسول الله السلام, what have been narrated, transmitted by a tabi'in upon the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So those are that's the second definition of a Hadith al-Mursal, what have been transmitted upon the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by a tabi'i, whether he is a senior or a young or a junior or a younger tabi'in, without any distinction. And this is by way of his speech, is upon the Prophet of Islam, by way of his speech, his action or thing that he approved of, that have been transmitted by a tabi'in upon he alayhi salam. And that's the concerning definition that is widely accepted by Jamahir al-Hadith, by majority of the ulama of Hadith, that they are in line with this definition as mentioned by Hakim and others. A third definition of Hadith al-Mursal is what is stated by some of the ulama by mention كل إسناد لم يتصل. كل إسناد لم يتصل. So every isnad that is not complete. So meaning concerned is not of that meaning that this hadith, that there is someone who's unknown in the isnad, or there's a breakage in the isnad. It is. So that's the second definition. And this definition concerning hadith, that you might find that Imam Ahmad would use a definition, also Khatib al-Baghdadi, and also Abu Dawood and others. So out of the ulama who may somewhat incline to concerning that using mursal as meaning a hadith munqata. كل إسناد لم يتصل, every isnad where it is not complete. That's one of the definition given by hadith mursal, meaning similar to that of hadith al-munqata. Another definition that is given by hadith al-mursal, that they mention that hadith al-mursal ما سكت الصحابي من الإسناد. ما سكت الصحابي من الإسناد. And that is the definition given by al-Bayquniya. So Bayquniya in his Manzumat al-Bayquniya, he gave this definition, that hadith al-mursal ما سكت منه الصحابي. And so that's concerning of the definitions that are given concerning hadith al-mursal. So you have many definitions that are given, but these are the more renowned of the definition of hadith al-mursal, those four. So regarding concerning those hadith al-mursal, that, as we mentioned, most of them, the of al-hadith, that they are more in line with the second definition, which is that a statement of the tabi'in, a tabi'i narrating upon the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regarding his statements, his actions, and the things that he approved of, whether that sahabi, regardless of whether that sahabi is said, that tabi'i said to be a senior tabi'in or a younger or older or a younger tabi'in. So that's concerning the definition of al-mursal. And as we mentioned, that the third definition that is given by, that is used concerning meaning hadith al-munqata', that sometimes is concerned that, that at times some of the ulama of old may sometimes use mursal meaning munqata'. So for one, just to be aware that sometimes the word mursal is used simultaneous with the word munqata' with some of the ulama. Of them, Ahmad ibn Hanbal, where sometimes I describe a hadith as munqata', but read by hadith al-mursal, but they intend by this munqata'. So one being aware regarding that usage at times by some of the ulama of hadith. So that's concerning hadith al-mursal by way of definition, which is a statement or a narration of a tabi'i upon the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regarding things that he alayhi salam have said or have done or he approved of. The next of those matters regarding hadith al-munqata' is concerning the tafriq, the difference. How do they distinguish between who said to be a tabi'i kabir and a tabi'i saghir? So regarding concerning a tabi'i, as to be discussed further, is a tabi'i, briefly, is one who have met the sahaba. So the tabi'i is the one who have met the sahaba but did not met the Prophet ﷺ. So there's regard concerning a tabi'i, and the difference that they make between a tabi'i al-kabir was saghir, that they mention that they're upon different levels regarding the tabi'in of those which is kabir and those which is saghir. The kabir is not necessarily by sin, by age. To distinguish between both, as-saghir or kabir is not necessarily by age, but more so regarding at-tabi al-kabir are those who met many sahaba and narrated upon them. And the saghir is one who met a few sahaba. So the difference between a tabi al-kabir wal saghir is the tabi al-kabir is the one who met many companions and narrated upon them. The tabi saghir, the younger tabi, is the one who met a few companions and narrate upon them. So that's a distinction between both. It's not necessarily based upon who's older in age, but rather who met how many of the companions. That will make the distinction between a tabi al-kabir from a tabi al-saghir. The next of those matters regarding hadith al-mursal, and as we mentioned that in a definition, that the correct view is that there's no distinction between the narration of a tabi kabir over that of a tabi saghir regarding hadith al-mursal. So whether it is related by a older or a younger, both are said to be mursal. Next of those matters regarding hadith al-mursal, that you find that some of the tabi were known for this, or some of the tabi were renowned for making hadith or for narrating hadith al-mursal. Of those who were known for this practice among the tabi of narrating upon the Prophet of Islam directly, is one from al-Medina, Sa'id ibn Musayyib. So of those tabi'in who are known to narrate marasil, Sa'id ibn Musayyib of al-Medina, from al-Mecca, Ata ibn Abi Rabah, from al-Mecca was known to of the narrating many marasil from al-Misr, Sa'id ibn Abi Hilal, also from Al Sham, of those who were renowned from amongst the tabi'in of narrating marasil, we have Mahkul al-Damashqi from Al Sham, and also from Al Basra, that those who were known from of narrating marasil from Al Basra, Hassan ibn Abi Hassan, as I mentioned, Hassan al-Basri. So Hassan al-Basri, whose name is Hassan ibn Abi Hassan al-Basri. And also from Kufa, Ibrahim ibn Yazid al-Nakha'i. Ibrahim ibn Yazid An-Nisa'i. So those were those ones who were more renowned for amongst the tabi'in for narrating marasil from the various cities. The next of those matters regarding al-marasil, hadith al-marasil, what's the hukum on hadith al-mursal, mursal, and the plural is marasil. So hadith al-mursal, the plural is marasil. Of those hadiths regarding concerning the hukum, the ulama rahimahullah, that they a difference regarding hukum hadith marasil in different views. So you have many views that are there. Ibn Hajar rahimahullah mentioned over 13 different views. But in summary, that the view that they mentioned, that hadith al-mursal, that's not the ulama, that they do not accept them as sahih. So regarding concerning hadith al-marasil, then they are rejected. And that's the view taken by the ulama of hadith. Of the ulama who hold that they only accept hadith which is marasil al-kibar sahaba, kibar tabi'in, and reject those of the sigar. Of the ulama who accept them, with other conditions, such as Imam Shafi rahimahullah. So Imam Shafi rahimahullah, he accept marasil, but with certain conditions. So you have different aqwal, but the majority of the ulama of hadith, as mentioned by Imam Muslim and others, who they reject marasil as being hadith sahih, that is hadith which is rejected. So hadith al-marasil, that they consider to be rejected hadithun da'if, based upon the reason being because at-tabi'in is not able to narrate upon the Prophet of Islam directly, as there's a generation between them. And at times you might find that and those who are missing or unknown, it is not clear whether that tabi narrated upon a sahabi or did he narrate upon other tabi'in. So because of that unknown, the jahala, not knowing those who he narrated upon, then that is the reason behind the hadith being said to be da'if. So that's concerning marasil or hadith al-mursal. So that's hadith al-mursal. As for an example regarding hadith al-mursal, and as a hadith al-mursal regarding concerning, you have many hadith that as we discussed concerning that you have books that can somewhat discuss concerning hadith al-mursal. There's and we mentioned some of the example from some of those books directly as we'll come to discussing those books. But hadith al-mursal, an example they mentioned that Sa'id ibn Musayyib قال أن رسول عليه السلام قال من ضرب أباه فاقتلوه. من ضرب أباه, the one who strikes his father, أباه فاقتلوه, then that person is to be killed. So that's hadith al-mursal, which is Sa'id ibn Musayyib narrating upon the Prophet ﷺ, that the Prophet ﷺ has said, Man daraba abahu, the one who hits his father or strike his father or hit his father, should be faqtulu, he should be killed. And that hadith is not authentic, as mentioned. So it is mentioned by Marasil Abu Dawood. So that hadith, even though it's from Marasil, but it's not said to be authentic, because between Sa'id ibn Musayyib and the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we said there's a generation gap. So based upon that, the hadith is said to be daif, and also that hadith also a thing which is that's another thing which is contrary to what, and so it is not in line with what Islam, not in line with Islam. So a person is not per se killed because he struck his father. So a person is not to be killed because of. So there's thing that is somewhat objected. There's an objection regarding the statement also, things that are questionable about this also narration. So based upon this, that so that's concerning example of hadith al-mursal by Sa'id Musayyib upon the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we said the hadith, or that hadith is daif. So that's concerning that matter regarding that hadith al-Mursal by way of example. Then as for concerning hadith al-Mursal, then also the ulama rahimahumullah have clarified that hadith al-Mursal, they are on different degrees. So hadith al-Mursal, they are upon different degrees. So you are some that are more stronger than others. More are said to be stronger. So marasil kibar tabi'in, then also that carried a greater value than that of that carry a greater value. So the marasil of Sa'id bin Musayyib, that will carry more value also, and others, Masruq ibn Ajda amongst the tabi'in. So we have the concerning marasil of Masruq ibn Ajda. Also is marasil also they have a degree of more value, or concerning asah, that are more to be more correct, even though correct concerning they are more authentic, but not meaning that they are authentic as a complete hadith. But as a statement going back to Sa'id bin Musayyib, then it is said to be of the more asah, more authentic of the marasil, even though they are not said to be in general as a ruling that they are said to be daif. But compared to each others, these ones are said to be more authentic compared to other marasil that one might find. So that's concerning marasil, that they are on different levels. Those that are more valued than others. Others concerned that are said to be of value. Ibrahim An-Nisa'i. So Ibrahim ibn Yazid An-Nisa'i also is marasil, also is said to be of some value. So that's concerning marasil, regarding concerning the ones that are said to be of different values. Muhammad ibn Sirin is marasil, also are said to be of value. Muhammad ibn Sirin is also marasil, are said to be of value. Then next matter regarding marasil is regarding a matter concerning books related to that particular topic, or books that have been written specific on that topic of marasil. So you have some ulama have taken the have written books on this particular topic. I would have mentioned and we'd show an example of some. So regarding concerning of those regarding marasil, of concerning this book that is referred to as Marasil li Ibn Abi Dawud al-Sijistani. So Abu Dawud al-Sijistani, concerned the author of Sunan Abu Dawud, that also has this book Marasil. So this book is concerning of Abu Dawud rahimahullah, and this particular book of Abu Dawud, of the thing that he mentioned hadith of Marasil, what sometimes hadith which is munqata, as sometimes that the word marasil is used regarding hadith munqata. So you might find a combination of both hadith marasil, but at times also meaning hadith which is munqata. But his book is somewhat written in the form of, it is done based upon abwab. So we have ma jaa fi thiyab, majab. So bab number 6, ma jaa fi thiyab. Then he mentioned ma jaa fi jama'. So concerning, it is written concerning that of marasil, based upon Abwab al-Fiqhiyya. Then we have another book that is called Marasil, Kitab al-Marasil, which is written by Al-Razi, Abu Hatim Al-Razi. So Abu Hatim Al-Razi rahimullah also wrote a book of Marasil, and those of the renown of those books on this topic. Also another important book on this topic is Al-Jami' al-Tahsil li Ahkam Marasil. Jami' al-Tahsil li Ahkam Marasil by Ala'i, by Imam Al-Ala'i. So of the ulama, and this one, a very important one regarding Marasil. So that's concerning those books and others that are written on that particular topic of Hadith al-Marasil. So that inshallah ta'ala we have covered concerning, in brief, for the author rahimullah mentions regarding Marasil, which is Marasil, also to bear in mind that Marasil of two types. Marasil al-Zahir, or Jali, which is the one that we just covered. Then as the author he mentioned, وَمِنْهُ, then he mentioned Mursal هو قول التابعي فإن لم يكن كبيرا قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ومنه ما خفي إرساله. So there's a second type of irsal. So he mentioned that al-marasil it is a statement of the tabi'i that the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have said such and such. وَمِنْهُ, and of this, amongst it, مَا خَفْيَ إِرْسَالُهُ, of those that are more hidden. So you have إرسال al-marasil al-khafi, that also is discussed by the ulama. And that concerning marasil al-khafi is the second type of marasil. So the second type of marasil al-khafi, it is described where concerned the ulama, they mention huwa rawat, and concerning al-rawi yarwi, or al-rawat yarwi amman asirahu wa lam yasma minhu. It's not with a person that he narrates on a person that he did not meet from his time. So both of them are of the same time, but he's narrating from that person that he did not heard something from, or they were from the same time period, they were Akran, they were from the same time, but and he did not meet him. So that's concerning hadith. So narrating on someone of your time that you did not meet, nor you heard from him. So someone narrating from someone of their time period, but there was no meeting between both. Now, if you met him, you did not hear anything from him. That's concerning marasil al-khafi, which is a much more, very more technical of those abwab of hadith. And at times it is discussed concerning marasil al-khafi, it is discussed concerning with hadith al-tadlis. So to discuss more in the area concerning hadith al-tadlis or al-mudallis in that particular area, as they share certain similarities and differences. So that's concerning that era. It is somewhat very of those more detailed discussion regarding ilm al-hadith, irsal al-khafi, where both were of the same time, but they may not have met, or they may have met, but the person did not receive any, or didn't hear or receive a hadith from him. And that's where the complication it is. So there was some form of either they were of the same time, but and even at times they may have met, but there was no exchange of hadith between both. So with this, it makes the matter a little more complicated. So that's concerning irsal al-khafi, and that also hadith is said to be da'if, based upon the fact that there was no exchange from both. There was no meeting from both, or no sama from both. So based upon this, hadith is said to be da'if. So the hukum of irsal al-khafi is da'if due to the form of inqita'. There's a form of breakage between the narrators, or adam as-sama, or both not hearing actually from each other. So that's considered to be al-inqita'. Khatib al-Baghdadi rahimahullah have written on this particular topic a book that is called Tafsil li-Mubham Marasil. Tafsil li-Mubham Marasil, written by Khatib al-Baghdadi rahimahullah tabaraka ta'ala. So that's concerning the difference between both. Irsal al-Jali, which is the one that we discuss more, that's called Hadith al-Mursal, that discuss more in detail. And we have the second type of Mursal, which is Mursal al-Khafi, which is the one which is sometime discussed more with tadlis. But here the author rahimullah, he mentioned here, and also it is said to be a form of breakage, inqita', breakage that occur where both individuals may have met, may be of the same time period, era, but they did not exchange hadith between themselves. So that's said to be a form of inqita', or a breakage between both. So that inshallah ta'ala, that and a person can somewhat, how does a person know that this occurs, that two individuals met or of the same time period, but there was no actually exchange that occurred between them? How can one know of this? It is mentioned by the ulama that a person can either know of this by one of the a'immatil kibar, that he would make note of this or mention this. So one of ulama al-kibar, he would clarify that these two individuals, that they were of the same time period, but no exchange occurred between them regarding hadith. So it is clarified by one of the ulama al-kibar. And the second way is by that person himself mentioned that. So the person himself also confessing, that narrator confessing that he may be of the same time of that person, but they did not meet, or they met but they did not exchange any hadith. So the person clarifying themselves. So that's a ways of knowing of this matter. So with that, inshallah ta'ala, we have covered concerning hadith al-marasil. The next of those things that he discussed is hadith al-mu'dal. Hadith mu'dal that author rahimahullah he discussed. With hadith al-mu'dal that he mentions here the definition. So we discuss concerning hadith al-mu'dal, which he mentions here that the definition هو ما سقط من إسناده اثنين فأكثر ويسمى منقطع أيضا وكل معدل منقطع ولا عكس. So the author rahimahullah, Ibn Malakin rahimahullah, when he defined hadith al-mu'dal, he mentioned هو ما سقط من إسناده. So there's someone who is missing from the isnad, or individuals missing from the isnad. It could be one or more, or it could be اثنين فأكثر, it could be two or more. So al-mu'dal is when two or more narrators are missing from the isnad. And he mentioned ويسمى, and also he referred to as munqata. So at times mu'dal is referred to as munqata because there's a breakage. Then he mentioned, the third point he mentioned, وَكُلَّ مُعْدَل مُنْقَطَع. Every mu'dal is a munqata. وَلَا عَكْس. But not every munqata is a mu'dal. And this is concerning that, as he defined, concerning that and the difference, and so the point concerning, first, the definition of mu'dal. So the first point he discussed concerning هو ما سقط من إسناده اثنين فأكثر. What it is, mu'dal is when two or more narrators are missing from the isnad. So at mu'dal, a condition for mu'dal is that two or more must be missing. So it is two or more. And the ulama, like Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, also added a condition to his where it says ala tawali, where two or more are missing ala tawali, continuously, simultaneously, one after another. That is mu'dal. So one after the other are missing in succession. So you have two or more missing in succession. That is mu'dal. And he mentioned also fi isna isnad, and also occur in the center of the isnad. So not at the front, at the start of the isnad, nor at the end of the isnad, but rather in the middle of the isnad. So that is concerning mu'dal. But it's like the author rahimahullah mentioned here that mu'dal is when two or more are missing from the isnad. Then he mentions that's concerning al-mu'dal. Also, that you find that some of the ulama that they may mention to mu'dal as also al-munqata. Mu'dal at times also referred to as munqata. And as we mentioned also third, that sometimes mu'dal is also referred to as Mursal. So all the persons just be mindful that sometimes we give the definition, but at times some of the ulama may use the word mu'dal and they intend by this munqata. And at times may intend by this mu'dal, as we mentioned before. And some of the ulama also mentioned that also mu'dal sometimes can intend regarding indicating the hadith is somewhat weak, also indicating some weakness in the hadith. So to be mindful regarding that the word mu'dal might have different meaning with some of the ulama. So al-mu'dal, regarding concerning a general definition, and as mentioned that what's the hukum regarding mu'dal? Based upon if it is clear concerning that you find that two or more of the narrators are missing, then the hadith will forfeit the condition of ittisal. So by this, the hadith will forfeit one of the conditions for hadith to be deemed to be authentic, which is that ittisal, a continuous chain from the start through to the end. With mu'dal, then this condition is missed, forfeited, where two or more of the narrators are not present or unknown. So by this, it is mentioned that the hadith is said to be mu'dal, and it is then deemed to be the hukum concerning mu'dal hadithu daif, and also very weak hadith. So it is said to be very weak hadith, as you find multiple narrators are missing. Multiple narrators are missing. And as we mentioned that, as Ibn Hajar rahimahullah and some have mentioned, that mu'dal is more regarding where this multiple missing of the narrators, it occurs in the middle of the isnad. So at the end, at the start, is of a different name. At the end of the isnad, it have a different term that is used that we'll discuss. And so at the end, it will call Mursal. And as we covered just before, so Mu'dal is when the breakage, those who are missing, they occur in the middle of the isnad. At the end, it is referred to by way of the tabi, is said to be Mursal, and we'll discuss what comes next regarding when it occurs, the breakage occur at the beginning of the isnad. So that's concerning matters regarding al-Mu'dal. As for books that you may find, third, as for books that one might find Hadith al-Mu'dal, we have multiple narrators are missing continuously, that or simultaneously, that you'll find concerning that. Of those books that you'll find that concerning that, we'll have concerning Mu'dal or Munqati' wal Mursal, the books concerning Sunan Lisaid ibn Mansur. So you're concerning Sunan Lisaid ibn Mansur, that written in 2027, and also books of Ibn Abi Dunya. So the books of Ibn Abi Dunya, that he has many books that have written on various topics, that you find many hadith, that a lot of narration in those books, in some of his books, or you find narration in some of those books that will fall into Mu'dal, Munqati', and also Mursal. So the books of Ibn Abi Dawood or Ibn Abi Dunya, that will contain hadith that have various types of breakage within them. So with that, inshallah ta'ala, that's concerning covering today Mursal, by way of the two forms of Mursal, Al-Jali, that we cover, which is the statement of a tabi that the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said or did or approve of something. I will discuss some of those masail that relates to it, and the overall is that Mursal, that they are said to be hadith weak, because it is unknown who's after the tabi'in. And at times, some of the tabi'in that narrate upon each others. So the hadith, and it is unknown whether that person is said to be thiqa or not. So based upon not knowing the uncertainty of who that person is, then the hadith is said to be weak. And also we discussed concerning today, and then the second form of hadith al-Mursal, which is Mursal al-Khafi, which is someone narrating upon someone that were of the same time, but they never have met, or they met, but they didn't exchange hadith. And that, so also that's a form of breakage in isnad. Then we discuss concerning what he discussed as the third, which is al-Mu'dal, which is continuous narrators, multiple narrators missing in the isnad. So based upon this, the hadith, and so it's concerning all these hadith are isnad, discussion regarding isnad that contain some form of inqita', breakage. So Mu'dal, Mursal, and Munqati' are where a discussion of the isnad, where there's a breakage, there's a saqt, someone is unknown or missing in the isnad. So narrators being missing in the isnad, whether in the middle, the center, or the beginning or the end of the isnad. So these are matters that relates to dirasa fil asanid, studying or concerning isnad of the hadith where breakage have occurred. So this, inshallah ta'ala, will end for this segment of the lesson, and we'll continue, inshallah ta'ala, what follows after this. وبالله تعالى توفيق وهذه إلى السبيل والآخر دعوانا الحمد لله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.